2021 Rough Rider Roundup in Medora, North Dakota. I'm your host, Joe Wiegand. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you here today. If you'll find your table, now that you've all sat down, would you please stand and rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Take your seats. We're going to get through some introductions and then give thanks for our meal, have a wonderful program, and you've got to exercise just a little bit of patience with that wonderful meal in front of you. But if you're famished and fainting, go right ahead. It won't be held against you. We're so very glad that here today we have leadership of the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation. I'd like to introduce these board members that I'm told are in attendance, and if you would, there's a future board member in attendance for sure. We'd like you to stand, stay standing, and be recognized together. Please do not hold your applause. Rich Becker, Rolf Sletton, Gretchen Stenjum, Guy Mose, Barry Schaefer, Claudia Anderson, Bruce Furness, and the chairman of the board, the former Governor Ed Schaefer. Thank you to those board members for your service. We'd also like to acknowledge that we have with us North Dakota Secretary of State, Al Jaeger. Please stand, Al. Let us say thank you for your love of Medora. University of North Dakota President Andrew Armacost and his wife, Kathy. Welcome, welcome, already in the vanguard of leadership. Billings County Commissioner Connie Cassian. Thank you, Commissioner Cassian, or Cassian, I've got to get to a meeting. Amy Kennedy, the co-director of the Christian Ministry in the National Parks. Thank you, Amy. North Dakota Tourism Director Sarah Ott Coleman. Come to the place that we often say gave birth to the modern North Dakota tourism effort. Jim and Joanne Cack, 2020 Bully Spirit Award winners. The Cacks. Bully. And he's got to stand a second time. Rolf Sletton, 2018 Bully Spirit Award winner. We are so very pleased to annually have a partnership with a Christian ministry in the national parks. The Schaefer family has long embraced and supported that ministry, as has our current president, Randy Hatzenbuhler. So here to share an invocation, Kim Wadsack from the Christian ministry in the national parks. Kim, the floor is yours.
It's so good to be here. Please join me in prayer. Accept, O Lord, our thanks and praise for all that you have done for us. We thank you for the splendor of your whole creation, for the beauty of this world, for the wonder of life, and for the mystery of love. We thank you for the blessing of family and friends, and for this loving care which surrounds us on every side. We thank you for setting us at tasks that demand our best efforts and lead us to accomplishments that satisfy and delight us. We thank you also for those disappointments and failures that lead us to acknowledge our dependence on you alone. Above all, we thank you for your Son, Jesus, for the truth of his word and the example of his life, for his steadfast obedience by which he overcame temptation, for his dying through which he conquered death, and for his rising to life again, in which we are raised to the life of your kingdom. Grant us the gift of your Spirit that we may know Christ and make him known, and through him, at all times and all places, may give thanks to you in all things. We thank you for this Rough Rider Roundup weekend, for the generous hearts in this room, and for the food that we are about to partake. In Jesus' name, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I pose a question to you? How's your luncheon today? That hit the spot for me, and I was a little on that famished side myself. I started out this morning at 8 a.m. on the beautiful Pancrats Trails. Who's hiked the Pancrats Trails? Make some noise. Well, we need more of you to do so. Every morning at 8 o'clock, except Monday morning, we've got guided hikes on the Pancrats Trail, but you go anytime you like. You're in for a real treat right now. For years now, we've enjoyed the sounds of the gospel brunch, and we do that on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday mornings. The show is led by the wonderful talents of Emily Walter and a sermon by Bill Sorensen, and yet it's the music and the singing of all of the talented people that you're about to see here on stage this morning and just about noon hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation Gospel Brunch Quartet and Band for your listening pleasure.
Welcome to Rough Riders Roundup. We are the cast of the Medora Gospel Brunch, a refreshed celebration. I cannot believe it has been 6 years. This is our 6th season. This year, this summer, we have the same old favorites, but a lot of really wonderful, exciting new material. Come share the joy with us. Na 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 na.
Oh, I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. Yes, I love to tell the story, 'cause I know it's true, and it satisfies my longings, oh, as nothing else can do. Come on and sing that sweet, sweet song of salvation, and let the laughter fill the air. Sing that sweet, sweet song of salvation, and tell the people everywhere. Sing that sweet, sweet song of salvation. Tell every man in every nation. Sing that sweet, sweet song of salvation, and let the people know Jesus cares. That's why we're singing. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer.
Put your hands together, feel that Holy Spirit. I once was lost in sin, but Jesus took me in. Then a little light from heaven filled my soul. Well, he bathed my heart in love, and you wrote my name above. Just to luck with Jesus made me whole. So let us talk with Jesus. Let us tell him he will hear and he will answer. When you feel, then you will know, and you'll find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Come on, now let us talk with Jesus. Let us tell him he will hear and he will answer by your heart. When you feel, then you will know, and you'll find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Yeah, you'll find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. You'll find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Thank you. We hope to see you at the new Refreshed Gospel Brunch.
I'd like one more individual to stand and be recognized. He's worn a lot of hats in this community and hats throughout the state of North Dakota. And that's my friend Pat Weir. Pat's a member of the Bully Pulpit Board and a past board member as well. And Pat's the chairman of the North Dakota State Historical Society, so very important to us here in Medora and throughout the state. Pat, would you stand and be recognized? Thank you. Good to see you, Pat. I've been asked to introduce someone. And he's someone that I've known closely for 10 years. That's the number of summers that I've been performing in Medora as Theodore Roosevelt. I'm from the land of Lincoln. I tried performing as Abe Lincoln, no one believed me. But being Teddy Roosevelt here in Medora is a very special thing. I've seen a lot happen here in the last decade. I've seen an expansion of the old town hall theater. What an honor and a pleasure to perform on a stage named for my friend and one of the most talented men I've ever met, Bill Sorensen. I've seen a Badlands Motel and an Elkhorn Quarters come alive in a new way, and seen a new putt-putt course, and have so enjoyed the Pancrats Trails. And a real huge game changer was the Bill and Jane Marcil Life Skills Center. And I'm sure Randy Hatzenbuhler will tell you a little bit about how that came about. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been here for 34 years with Medora. And I'm glad that I've had a chance to see what I might call the middle 10 of the president of the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation, Randy Hatzenbuhler.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate everyone being here. I have to let you in on a little secret. The Gospel Quartet, that was awesome, thank you. The secret is this. Before you all came into the room, my 3-year-old granddaughter, Reagan, is sitting in the back there. And she was so excited to come to Medora and see the musical last evening, but very disappointed that the Gospel Brunch wasn't starting until next week. So I said to Reagan about 20 minutes ago, Reagan, you really want to hear the Gospel Brunch, don't you? She said, yeah. I said, Grandpa's going to ask the singers to come up and sing just for you. Did you like them, Reagan? One other early observation. People are ready to be happy. It has been so much fun these first few days. I've said, we might not even have to be that good and people are going to be really happy. It's a great way to start the summer. This is the 35th anniversary year of the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation. We gather for the roundup each year to say thank you to people who love this little town for a variety of reasons. We gather to remind ourselves that it's important to preserve the charm and the character of this town that defines Medora. And we gather to celebrate improvements that have been made and are being made so that new families will discover this special landscape and the history that's part of it. Harold Schaefer, and Ed, I'm looking at you. Harold Schaefer and his family had hope, desire, maybe even a vision that we would reach a milestone year like this. There were no guarantees in 1986 when they formed a new 501c3 nonprofit public foundation that essentially put the future of Medora in the public's hands. If the public was uninterested in Medora's future would be uninteresting. If the public believed, as Harold did, that there was too much here to be lost, Medora would survive and maybe even thrive. It's wonderful that the public was interested in Medora. My history only began in 1988. By that time, the Schaefer family and Gold Seal Company had almost put a quarter century of resources and energy into building Medora and restoring it. Sometimes it's fun to look back, and recently we were given a look at a 1966 video, so I'm going to just be quiet for a few seconds.
The program you are about to see is brought to you through the courtesy of McCarney Ford in Bismarck. Medora, North Dakota is rapidly becoming North Dakota's biggest tourist attraction. This program was produced during the 4th of July weekend that opened the tourist season at Medora for 1966. Celebration in Medora, and here comes the parade. The big parade on the 4th of July. Leading the parade are two park rangers from the Theodore Roosevelt National Memorial Park.
That's 1966.
Sir, I wonder if I could stop you for just a minute, turn you around so people at home can see you, and ask you what your name is.
I'm Joe Hild.
Where are you from?
I'm from Medora.
Oh, you're a native here then.
That's right, yeah.
What do you think of the changes in the town in the past couple of years?
It's a nice welcome change.
You like this idea?
Yes, it's real good.
There's a 15-minute video, and it's worth a look. That last man was Joe Hild. I met him when I first came to Medora. His son, John Hild, worked for probably 4 decades for Gold Seal and Medora Foundation. They owned the Maltese Cross Ranch. That was Theodore Roosevelt's ranch. And on some of the footage, you'd see Mark Nelson, who was brother-in-law to Harold Schaefer, and built a lot of the core buildings that were at the start of this. But it's really fascinating to me. Sometimes we think, wow, we've done something really cool. In 1966, you could hardly walk on the streets. It was so crowded. I don't know where the people stayed. There weren't any rooms in town hardly, Ed. You watch that and you say, well, what was Harold Schaefer doing in 1966? So here's a couple of clips about Harold.
This is Harold Schaefer, his wife, and their little grandson.
And I don't think we need to tell anybody who they are. Rodeo headquarters, it says, Bismarck, North Dakota. Harold, tell me, you look like the chief cook and bottle washer today.
Well, we've sure had a lot of fun. There's a lot of people here in Medora.
Tell me all that's been going on here in the last couple of days.
Well, basically, there's nothing been going on except it's been raining for 2 days and 2 nights. We've all been wallowing in the mud, digging the meat out of the mud puddles and trying to keep it dry.
What does the future look like for Medora? Have anything specifically in mind?
Well, I have all kinds of things in mind.
They've got the butcher knife ready for you. Get back and do some more carving.
All right, thank you, Bruce. It's been fun to be with you. We'll see you again, and lots of good luck.
Okay.
Isn't that a classic look of Harold taking the hat and waving at us? I will always consider it one of the greatest privileges to have worked with Harold for 13 years. And I watch that video and I think, what's he doing? He's talking about digging the meat out of the ground. He's got an apron on. He's going to get the butcher knife. He's going to carve it up. And I think about our staff in Medora and that they're willing to do whatever it takes. A few weeks ago, the University of Mary had their commencement ceremony, and a man named Vern Dosh delivered that commencement speech. And I think the highlight of the talk was a quote by Vern himself, and I'm pretty sure Vern came up with this by watching people like Harold Schaefer. What he said was this: if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. We're so lucky to have people like Harold that we can look and we can say to the people who work for us that there's a model here that we can follow. The other thing we like to do here at the Roundup is kind of give you an update and talk about what's happening in the organization. You've seen images as we've been entering in here, things that have been happening, but I want to point out a few things. It is an unofficial document, but it's an evolving document that the board and the management team are working on for the long-range vision of Medora, and we've organized our thoughts into 6 categories. The first one is world-class outdoors. Joe referred to part of it already. Linda Pankratz made a wonderful gift to develop the Pankratz Trails, and where are Rich and Joanne Becker? I know, Rich, you've been acknowledged before, but the world is changing a bit. The campground, the previous slide was 50 amp sites that we just are opening tomorrow out at the campground. We actually used a few of them over the weekend because it was overflow need, but that was tremendous. We know that that's going to be more active in the future. More people are camping and RVing, and more people are hiking. We are working to make sure that Bully Pulpit remains a top-tier golf course in this country. It's a reason people come here. So the second one is called Legacy Bully Pulpit, and there have been a lot of folks already who have been helping us with that. The third is called something we call Theodore Roosevelt, the Medora musical, and 1,000 shows. Do you realize that during the course of the summer, the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation will put on between 500 and 1,000 performances in Medora? We think only of the 100 days at the Medora musical, but there's the Gospel Brunch, the Old Town Hall, multiple shows, the Andrus Stage, the Christmas show in the fall, around Christmas time. There's a lot of productions. There's a group of board members who are incredibly active and committed to something that when you come across the interstate and you enter town, that you will know you are at a real, authentic Western destination. We call it Western Heritage. We envision the riding stables being upgraded, being moved across the road. We envision a great update to the Rancherama Rodeo grounds, where you might have a professional rodeo and a PBR event out there, and have even a training facility for folks who are really, really interested in the equine area. So that's in our future. Vibrant Medora just says this community is going to continue to grow. There's going to be more interest in it. It's why you see in the last couple of years, we added a daycare facility to our organization, because we want the young people who love this place to be able to stay and raise a family here. And finally, the last one is called Glory of Work and Joy of Living, the famous quote by Theodore Roosevelt. What does that mean? It means we want to be known as a builder of character-based leaders through work and educational experiences in Medora. You know, the Life Skills Center is an opportunity, and Tuesday next week, we're going to have a day called the Wisdom Chain Day, where there's going to be some amazing speakers that will speak to our employees and business people from across the state. We envision a future where we're celebrating a 75th anniversary of the Medora musical, a 100th anniversary of the Medora musical. Unfortunately, Reagan, I won't be here with you by that time. But we think about those things 5 years at a time. 5 years at a time. What's the next 5 years going to look like? Well, one thing we expect is there's going to be a presidential library in this community. It's going to be tremendous. It's an independent organization. We want to help and support them in every way that we can. But mostly, we want to make sure the things that we're responsible for are at a level that they need to be. Great quality facilities and great service. Finally, we gather around the roundups to honor people who have been extraordinarily interested in Medora. We recognize those folks as Bully Spirit Award winners. And in a few minutes, Bill Sorensen will come up to properly do that. But Bill and Jane and all of your family, I want to personally congratulate you and thank you for everything that you do for Medora and have done. This is our 5th summer in the Life Skills Center. I have loved working in Medora for parts of 4 decades, and most of you have come here many times. I've told you before, the reason I worked in Medora is I love young people. I have never seen in the time I've been here a single thing that's had a greater impact for the benefit of the employees and the volunteers. So I don't know how to say it any more than what Harold used to say, the 2 most powerful words in the language are thank you. We really appreciate it. Now, just for fun, Bill and Jane, your lives have been in the media world. So I'm going to return to the 1966 clip and want you to look at this with an eye of, man, journalism was a little different back then.
Come on over here, Linda. Turn around and look right up there.
Look at that man on that.
See this fellow up there?
Wave to him now.
What's your name now?
Bye-bye to him. Wave.
Linda.
Yeah. What's your last name, Linda?
I know it.
You don't know it, huh?
What is your last name?
How old are you?
But that's 495.
I beg your pardon?
You're 5.
Oh, I think she gave me her telephone number there.
That was it, too.
What's your name?
This is Johnny Paul,
Where from?
Bismarck.
And how do you like it out here today?
It's pretty nice.
They've really changed the town of Medora around a little bit, haven't they? Brought it back to the way it was back when Teddy Roosevelt was here. Did you have some of that good buffalo?
Yes, I did.
How'd you like it?
It was real good.
Can I ask you to turn around? Boy, she's pretty. She's got green eyes. What's your name?
Arnett Ingalls.
Where from, Arnold?
Bismarck.
Bismarck. Well, how about that buffalo? You got an awful big sandwich. Can you hold that up so you can see? Just take a look at that.
That's half of it.
That's half of it, yeah. Have you eaten the other half already?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
See? How do you like it?
Oh, it's delicious. It really is good.
Better than hamburgers?
A lot better.
I think he was trying to get her phone number. In closing, I'm just going to say it is an honor and a privilege to work for an organization that takes seriously the mission to preserve, present, and serve. We've acknowledged a lot of people, but I want to acknowledge the people who work here. And I'm going to single one out, just one, because if you are paying attention this summer, every place across the country is struggling to hire people in the hospitality industry. It's almost impossible. When I was in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago, there were 20 stations at the hotel that we checked in. 4 of them were being manned. They charged us $50 for early check-in if we checked in before 3 p.m. Sarah, would you stand up? This is one of our talent acquisition people. It is no small feat that she's and her HR colleagues have been able to hire nearly 300 people to work here. We still need more, but Sarah and the rest of the folks who are working for the Medora Foundation, this is the future of the Medora Foundation in Medora. Justin, if you are working as a member of the full-time staff of the Medora Foundation, please stand up, would you? We have a great team, and they work really, really hard for you. Thank each of you for being here. There are board members, there are annual members, there are business members, there are some invited guests, and there are volunteers. And I'll close with this. I got a card this week from a woman who's well into her 80s, and she wrote this. She said, "Hi, Randy. I have just reread the TRMF 2020 annual report. There's so much information and accomplishments. You all can be proud. I love seeing how many have stepped up to volunteer in many ways, and what fun for me to read of the new projects and the plans for the future. The possibilities are endless. And yet the Badlands touch people in the same way they did TR in 1883. Her husband Dick passed away about 8 or 10 years ago, and she writes, Dick and I enjoyed our time in Medora. Those retirement years in volunteering were the best of our life. Our volunteer award remains on the hall in my home. She received the Volunteer of the Year award in 2003. But I just thought this is perfect words. The possibilities are endless. And the Badlands touch people in the same way they did TR in 1883. So thank you to all of you for what you do for Medora. It's going to be a great summer. I can feel it. It's just the numbers are really good at this point in time.
This is really wonderful. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Have you heard the man in the arena? You're about to hear it again. Theodore Roosevelt, when he left the White House, was 50 years old. Had 6 children, grandchildren coming. He went and hunted in Africa for over a year with his son Kermit. This last week, because of the legwork of young Daniel Ganarelli, we hosted the Kummerfelt family. 112 years ago, their grandfather, Philip Percival, hosted Theodore Roosevelt in Kenya. It was so nice to return the hospitality over a century later. That family's fallen in love with Medora, and they've gifted this foundation the letter that Theodore Roosevelt wrote in 1908 to Mr. Percival asking for his assistance on the hunt. We will be good caretakers of that. Theodore Roosevelt hunted in Africa not only because he wanted to do that scientific work and have that adventure with his son and the other scientists and hunters, but also because he wanted to give President William Howard Taft a chance to stand on his own 2 feet. And then Mrs. Roosevelt met him in Khartoum, and they sailed across the Mediterranean and they toured Europe. Theodore Roosevelt accepted his Nobel Peace Prize in Christiania, Oslo, Norway, a result of negotiating the settlement of the Russo-Japanese War with the Treaty of Portsmouth. He spoke at the great universities. He marched in the funeral of King Edward VII of the United Kingdom. And he spoke at the Sorbonne, the University of Paris. He made a speech there called Citizenship in a Republic. He was speaking as a representative, now a citizen, of the world's oldest republic, as young as it was, and speaking to the citizens of the world's second oldest republic. And what he said therein, there are portions of it that are wonderfully powerful and instructive about how to be a good citizen. And there's a portion of it that remains famous because we sometimes print it out or frame it. And very often I find people come to me and tell me that it's hanging in their office or it's in their den. And very often that it was given to them at a point when they suffered a loss or a tragedy. Theodore Roosevelt, in counseling the French how to be good citizens, he said, he pointed out that when you're in the arena and doing good deeds, that it's very likely that your good deeds will be criticized. And then he reassured his audience, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short to gain it again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great devotions, the great enthusiasms, who spends himself in a worthy cause, and who in the end, at the best, knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, that his name shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. That 60 seconds is a part of an hour-long speech, which through the modern device of technology introduced to me by one young Justin Fisk, is now available on our fingertips. The speech was an hour long. I have it all right here in my pocket. You are greatly relieved to know that I shall not attempt to read the entire speech to you. Did you know, however, that on page 12 of that 14-page speech, he gave it in English after introducing his early remarks, letting the audience know that he would not butcher the most romantic language in the world by attempting to make his speech in French. But he tells this, summarizing what he was about with regards to citizenship. The very last thing an intelligent and self-respecting member of a democratic community should do is to reward any public man because that public man says that he will get the private citizen something to which this private citizen is not entitled, or will gratify some emotion or animosity which this private citizen ought not to possess. Let me illustrate this by one anecdote from my own experience. A number of years ago, I was engaged in cattle ranching on the Great Plains of the western United States. There were no fences. The cattle wandered free. The ownership of each one was determined by the brand. The calves were branded with the brand of the cows they followed. If on a roundup an animal was passed by, the following year it would appear as an unbranded yearling and was then called a maverick. By the custom of the country, these mavericks were branded with the brand of the man on whose range they were found. One day I was riding the range with a newly hired cowboy, and we came upon a maverick. We roped and threw it, then we built a fire, took out a cinch ring, heated it in the fire, and then the cowboy started to put on the brand. I said to him, "It's so-and-so's brand," naming the man on whose range we happened to be. He answered, "That's all right, boss. I know my business." In another moment, I said to him, "Hold on, you are putting on my brand." To which he answered, "That's all right. I always put on the boss's brand." That's all right, Ben. I know my business. All right. I answered, "Oh, very well. Now you go straight back to the ranch and get whatever is owing to you. I don't need you any longer." He jumped up and said, "Why, what's the matter? I was putting on your brand." And I answered, "Yes, my friend. And if you will steal for me, then you will steal from me." For me, there's so much more about this speech, but the fact that he's coming to the culmination of one of the great speeches that he might make in his tour of Europe, and what was on his mind and on his heart was part of the ethic of the West. Sally has helped us paint those words of the Western ethic now at the Bill and Jane Marcil Life Skills Center. I'm glad to also then be asked to share with you today the introduction for today's Bully Spirit video that will tell you a little bit about today's award recipients. Thank you. The Bully Spirit Award is the highest honor bestowed by the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation to an individual or couple who have committed extraordinary effort and dedication to fulfill and advance the mission and vision of the foundation, which is to connect people to historic Medora for positive, life-changing experiences. The heart of the Bully Spirit is the allure of the Badlands and the landscape's capacity for healing, inspiration, and expanding one's soul. The life of the Bully Spirit is seen in the human capacity for goodness and achievement. That goodness and achievement is best represented in the lives of Harold Schaefer and Theodore Roosevelt. Each was touched by his love for Medora and the Badlands, and each had an extraordinary life of positive, life-changing impact. Just as people are attracted to Medora for varied reasons, Bully Spirit Award recipients will be known for their extraordinary efforts to share the history of Medora, Harold Schaefer, and Theodore Roosevelt, their impact through volunteerism, their generosity, their care for the landscape, their optimism which fuels action and achievement, and their extraordinary positive impact on the greater world in which they live. I mentioned the honor it is to be with Randy Hatzenbuhler and the leadership team here in Medora. But at the Old Town Hall Theater, I get to share a stage and a building and a dressing room area with Bill Sorensen. We actually used to share the Jaden House, the wonderful home in which Rod and Sandy Jaden raised their daughters, and it was the precursor to the Life Skills Center. We packed in so many offices and people in that beautiful home, and drop ceilings and fluorescent lights and picture windows. And then the Life Skills Center was built, and that was made as a residence for Bill Sorensen and I to share. And Bill was upstairs and I was downstairs, and we were Medora's odd couple. And I never knew I was Felix. But he makes me laugh. He makes me think. He gives me hope that people loving people will always be one of the most wonderful and positive things in this world. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend, Mr. Bill Sorensen.
Good afternoon, nice people. Welcome to Medora. One of the great assets that we have in the town of Medora, Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation, is one of the great assets of the guy that you were just listening to. Let's have a big round of applause for Joe. Yeah, Mr. Strenuous Life himself, if he'd have left his program down one more time, he wouldn't have got back up, I'm telling you that. It was an honor to share the same space with him, being the odd couple. You have no idea, though, how much harder it is for me than it was for him. He, as you quite obviously know, is the epitome of a split personality. And you never quite know which guy you're talking to on any given occasion. I feel very blessed that I am able to call friends the people that have won this award. And I feel indeed an honor and a privilege for me to have this opportunity to recognize some other friends, Bill and Jane Marcil, and to thank them not only for what they've done for the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation, but indeed far beyond. Their business acumen, philanthropy, and community involvement have impacted not only Fargo, North Dakota, and Medora, but all the other communities in which they have media outlets, and beyond that, the whole Midwest, and indeed the nation. They've had a true partnership since their marriage in 1960 that has produced unbelievable growth for the Forum Communications Company, a business that's been family held for 5 generations. The past and present management team of Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation has long recognized the philanthropy and kindness of the Marcil family. I remember how excited Harold was when the Marcils purchased land here in the 1990s, I believe it was, and how he said, it is great to have some people that are doers and thinkers like they are involved in Medora, and how happy he was that they chose to be involved. And I remember distinctly having a lunch with my friend Rod Jaden when he was president of the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation, and I was just a young guy just getting started in Medora 40 plus years ago, and having lunch in Bismarck and having him say to me just out of the blue, now listen, Bill, you need to talk to some of your business associates and political friends and start talking about Bill Marcil being governor in the state of North Dakota. And if he does run, you support him because he'd be really, really good for the state. He'd gotten to know Bill well through their work in the State Chamber of Commerce. And likewise, I remember our current CEO, Randy Hatzenbuhler. I remember when we left Bill and Jane's home in Arizona and had just asked them if they'd just chip in an extra $1 million and help us build this Life Skills Center. And I remember we getting to the car, and Randy got in the car, and he said, wow. And I looked with him in great anticipation, thinking, he's going to give me some insight. Are we going to get the money? His wow was followed by these words. He said, wow, if they aren't some of the most thoughtful, kind, generous, nice people that I've ever met. And I guess that's the important part of it. And I, as I mentioned, have a fondness for them as well. I often have a lunch in Arizona with Bill Marcil, and the lunch always starts with the words, he tells me how uninvolved and unconnected he is in North Dakota affairs. Then we spend the next hour talking about the school bond issue in Stanley, and who might get elected to the city council in Grand Forks, and what's going on in Dickinson and Medora. Together, they've formed a media empire from a single newspaper to 25 Midwest newspapers and a few broadcasting companies. While Bill has been the visible part of the dynamic duo, he would tell you that Jane is very much a part of all the decisions are made. In fact, watch this video and we'll let him tell you that.
One thing about publishing a newspaper, primarily, you can make a difference in people's lives, good or bad. So there's a real challenge, I think.
A challenge that Bill Marcil and his wife Jane have met time and time again, making a positive difference in people's lives.
We think it's important that the public be, that we serve the public to the best of our ability in a responsible way, and we've done that.
In 1960, Bill joined Forum Communications in the advertising department. He met Jane at college on the way to a get-together with friends.
Jane answered the door, and I said, "Where'd you come from?" And that was it. We were married 7 months later.
So began a marriage and a partnership that quickly made a positive impact at work, where Bill became the president and publisher of the Forum.
When Jane and I would have a discussion about what was going on at the company, I'd wake her up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, "Honey, what do you think of that?" And if she jabbed me and said, "No, we're not going to do that," the thing went away. If she said, "Yeah, that's a good idea," then we did it the next day.
And in another special place to the Marcils, Medora. Bill and Jane began taking trips there in the family RV in the 1970s.
The atmosphere is just so relaxing, and it's just North Dakota, and it's the Old West, and it's just a delightful, comfortable place.
Bill joined the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation Board in 1996, and he and Jane got a clearer view of the magic of Medora and how it could grow and improve.
As the foundation expanded Medora, there was never any central location for training and for the volunteers and the young hired hands, in a sense, for a place to hang out and to centralize their training facilities.
Years later, and thanks to tremendous generosity on the part of the Marcils, the ribbon was cut on the Bill and Jane Marcil Life Skills Center in Medora, a fabulous space for employees and volunteers to learn, work, and eat, a space for the Burning Hills singers to prepare for the Medora musical, a space where individuals can be themselves, grow, and prosper.
It's just a great place. It's nice to have the music rooms to be able to go into, use it as an outlet to kind of get all that stuff out, and then, just kind of chill out and work the rest of the time.
The word around with all of the young people primarily said, "Well, we'll meet you over at Bill and Jane's." It became sort of the label that they put on the Skill Center.
When you ask me what I think about Bill and Jane Marcil, I think about them every single day I come to work. Because this building, the Life Skills Center here in Medora, doesn't happen without Bill and Jane's support.
And when we're in Medora, we go over there and we'll have breakfast or we'll have lunch with the volunteers and the young people that are working there. It just rejuvenates both of us, we're real proud of it.
So, why do Bill and Jane Marcil embody the bully spirit?
sometimes, you know, you do a project and you forget about it. We go to Medora and we see what we've done there, and we see every day how this facility has improved the performance of all of the people involved, and that's fulfilling.
Because from the pages of the newspaper to the hearts and minds of Medora, they sought to make a positive difference in people's lives and saw that mission through.
Yeah. As I've gotten older, I sometimes enjoy playing a what-if game. You know, what if? What if Teddy Roosevelt hadn't come to Medora? What if Harold Schaefer hadn't come to Medora? A lot of other people that have been involved here. It's fun to ask the question, the what-if game, about the Marcils. What if in 1984, the Marcils had not purchased the newspaper? At that time, the family members who owned all 36 shares of the Forms were split as to whether they should expand, do business as it was, sell out to a larger major media player. As it turned out, Bill, Jane, and Jane's sister bought out the other shareholders, and later Bill and Jane bought out her sister. I dare say if that hadn't happened, not only would the landscape of Fargo-Moorhead be different, but our state and entire region would be as well. Because they've not only been progressive in growing their business, they've done it with a community spirit that extends to all the communities that they serve. This attitude was recognized by former Governor George Sinner when he stated that the Marcils were a force for good in North Dakota. Our own former governor and current chairman of our board, Ed Schaefer, he and I were talking last night, and he said what is really an ultimate compliment to the Marcils when we were talking about them. He said, they're herald-like. And in further defining it, he said, because they not only donate, they donate and are involved, and they do it happily. They're happy to see things happen. Sometimes media moguls abuse their power, but that's never been the case with the Forum Communications. With the many media outlets under the Forum banner, Bill and Jane certainly had a bully pulpit to influence the affairs of the region in their interest. But as Lloyd Case, longtime president and CEO of the Forum, once commented, Bill never abused his power. He always let the news people do their own stories. Certainly there have been many honors that have come the way of the Forum Communications and to the Marcil family. Bill has been recognized with the state's highest honor, the Rough Rider Award, chaired the American Publishers Association, chaired the National Chamber of Commerce, chaired a committee to help develop an economic development plan for our state before we had the diverse economy that we have today. And of course, Bill and Jane have been honored numerous times as leaders, great philanthropists, and ambassadors. They've made major gifts to UND, Concordia, NDSU, Morehead State, University of Mary, obviously the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation. Many of these were lead gifts so that they can encourage others to follow donations that are necessary to complete a project. They've also given away many millions of dollars to organizations totally anonymously. On a personal note, I would be remiss if I did not give thanks to the current Forum president, Bill Marcil Jr., and note that the philanthropy continues with him as well. Some of you may have attended our magical Medora Christmas shows. Without the Marcils, the Medora Christmas show may not exist. A few years ago, when I had the idea to take out the tour under the Medora banner, Randy liked the idea and was very supportive, but said, unfortunately, we have nothing in the budget. So I said I would take it over and run it on my own if I could maybe get some support and help from someone like Forum Communications. They have a presence in many of the communities we were going to go to. So I ran the idea by Bill Jr., and he, like his father, gave it very, very careful consideration for about 3.2 seconds and said, of course we will do that. Of course we will do that. And the rest, as they say, is history. I recently had lunch with Bill Jr., and I asked him, describe your parents. His reflection was good. He said, they have an understated, quiet beauty and strength like Western North Dakota. At first glance, you might miss the beauty. And then you turn a corner and all the colors open up. That's my parents. Today is really a day to say thank you to the Marcils for the major sponsorships that they have for the Bill and Jane Life Skills Center. It tickles me that both of them have commented to me and others that this may be the favorite donation that they have made in all their many donations that they've done. But it's not surprising, because they've been all about community. And there's no place that is more of a feeling of community than the Bill and Jane Marcil Life Skills Center. If you want to take the pulse of TRMF, that's where you go. It's a beehive of activity. In the video, you'll see the many important community functions the LFC serves. On a given day, you can see 2 retired people from Wisconsin sitting with 2 foreign workers, sitting with 2 seasonal employees from the golf course, and a management staff, all sharing their Medora experience. We are fortunate that so many have given so much to make Medora what it is today. A little town where a dynamic history, a uniquely breathtaking landscape, and world-class entertainment collide. We know how valuable it is for a community and a state to have a place of pride, somewhere you can take and show to your friends and relatives. We all love Medora. All of you show your love for Medora by bringing family and friends here, donating your time or money, as our honorees Bill and Jane have done. And that's what makes Medora so special. It's the people. It's the Medora family, which all of you are a part. It's the people who are willing to peel back another layer beyond what the casual tourist may find in Medora to explore what really makes it work. How foreign employees come early and stay late, allowing us to extend our season. How hundreds of volunteers spend thousands of hours doing jobs that otherwise couldn't get done. How seasonal staff comes back year after year because of their love for the place. How a management team that's capable well above this size organization stays here because of their belief in what happens here. All the lovers come together with the community to make Medora something unique in all the world. There are things and places that are bigger than any of us. This is one of them. Whatever your involvement, all of you here are the people of Medora. You're the heart of all that. So I am very pleased to present to you 2 of the people that are so deserving of getting this award and are certainly part of the heart of Medora as well. Bill and Jane Marcil, would you please stand? Bill, would you please join us on stage, please?
Thanks, Bill. You know, that's one of the most sincere and meaningful introductions our family's ever had. Thank you very much. Should I do this first?
Go ahead.
It's going to take half hour.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
Okay. Boy, those lights are bright. You know, I want to introduce my family. Medora really is, Jane and I, recognized for this award, and I want to thank the foundation very much, but it's all part of our family. I want to spend a few minutes talking about our family and our connection and relationship with Medora. It's especially important and meaningful to us to be here and to be a part of Medora, but it's also special to have our kids here to enjoy this day with us as well. So we've got Deb and Bill Morehouse. Debbie and Bill, stand up and stay standing there, and we'll get you all introduced. And then Bill's son, Bill Morehouse, and his friend, Kelsey. Then we've got son, Bill Jr., who Bill had mentioned, and we've got Louisa, and we've got Will. And then, yeah, that's my family, okay? Thanks, family. we've got brother Jack, his wife Kathy. When Jack came to town, he graduated from law school at UND, went to work for the Attorney General's office, came to Fargo to work for a firm. And we had a lunch one day, and I said, Jack, I won't tell you how to practice law if you don't tell me how to run a newspaper. And he said, that's a deal, you know, and it's worked well ever since. Jack and Kathy, nice to have you here. And Diane and Pat Weir are special. You know, Pat was our corporate attorney for years, and it's pretty unusual for a corporate CEO and his corporate attorney to become friends, because normally they're combative. Pat and I became extremely good friends in addition to working well together through the years. Bill had mentioned we had a family disagreement in 1984, and Pat was spending a lot of time at our house trying to develop some strategies on how we were going to win this battle. And after, I don't know, a couple of weeks, he was there, you know, 3 or 4 hours a day. And Jane said to him one day, she said, Pat, you know, would you move into our house with us? And Pat says, only if you'll adopt me. Well, that didn't happen. You know, the family started its love affair with Medora in the 70s, and that's when I first met Harold Schaefer. We served on a couple of boards together and maybe had something in common because Harold was born in Stanton, North Dakota, grew up in Mercer County, and my mother was born in Hazen and grew up in Stanton. As a matter of fact, my grandfather was the treasurer of Mercer County at one point. So that started us and started the connection with Medora through knowing Harold. Harold and I just hit it off. Maybe because of the Mercer County connection, I don't know. But, you know, I admired Harold like so many people. I was in awe of Harold for a lot of years, and then we became friends, talked politics a lot. Ed knows that. I think Harold wanted to be governor. It just didn't work out, but Ed did a fine job, not substituting, but in place of, I could say. Oh. So to continue the love affair with Medora, then we brought the family in because we did a lot of camping back in those days. We'd take a trip after school was out, get in the car, and we'd always stop in Medora. And later on in life, Medora became a destination for us as a family, and for Jane and I, almost every year, we'd come out here and ride horseback for a week. We'd stay in the campground. Pat and I get on the horses, and we had more darn fun. As a matter of fact, he lined me up with a fall roundup one year, which was a super time. So we spent time up in the Cottonwood Park. After Pat and Diane built their house, they had a camping pad down at their front yard, which we used for a couple of years. We still go up to this property that we bought, 80 acres of land straight south of Medora, and it's a gorgeous spot up there. Story about Harold and Shyla, when they found out that we bought this land, they wanted to go up and take a look. So we drove up there through 2 gates, a rutted trail to get up to the top. We're on top of this beautiful vista. You look over the city of Medora. You see the smokestack, Little Missouri right there, the amphitheater across the way. Harold looks at us and he says, wow, what a sight. He said you could put townhouses here and you could have put an apartment house here. And Jane says, no, 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 Harold. Never, never, never. And he looks at her and he said, that's right. Don't ever do anything with this land. Keep it pristine. And that's what we're going to do, kids, right? Well, that land purchase was kind of a logical thing for us to do because we love it out here and we have good neighbors with Pat and Diane, and it's just worked out. We're going to go up there later on this afternoon and show my brother and his wife the land and the other grandchildren as well. The family's been involved in Medora, but like I say, I served on the board. Bill Jr. worked with the Woolly Boys out here when that movie was made. He spent 6 weeks on the promotion group and got to know the town real well. And Izzy, his daughter, sang in an center stage a few years ago. And then when we were fortunate enough to have the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Life and Skill Center Louisa cut the ribbon for us. So we've all been involved in Medora, and it's been a great family experience for us. I think it's brought our family together. When we come out here, if we've had disagreements back home, we come to Medora and everything seems to change. So I want to thank the foundation again. Thank you very much. We just love this place.
I hope you've enjoyed this luncheon as much as I have. It's an inspiration to see again Harold and Shiloh Schaefer from a long time ago, and to hear of so much that's been done recently, and in great part thanks to Bill and Jane Marcil and the Marcil family. Today's also full of a lot more fun. The wonderful Up to Your Eyeballs in Bill Sorensen will be at 2 o'clock this afternoon, a little bit later start. Apparently, I'm not the only one that needs to recover from this luncheon, Mr. Sorensen. So, and then 3:30, the Teddy Roosevelt show on that Bill Sorensen stage in the Old Town Hall Theater. And on a hot day, the best part of my program is the air conditioning. And then 4:30, I think we've got the band from Colm playing. And at 5 o'clock, every night this summer, something that is truly world class from Wednesday evenings through Monday evenings. Tom Brousseau of the Great American Folk Show on Prairie Public Radio. He's doing that show live here every evening at 5 p.m. And later in the summer, when the musical goes to twice a night on the weekends, on many of our nights on the weekends, then Tom Brousseau is going to do his show every evening on those nights except Thursday night. He's going to do a 9:30 version of the Great American Folk Show. An honor and a pleasure to have him with us as well. We also have some friends, Joe and Catherine Satchram, in the audience. They're back over that way. Catherine's got some information out front about the next Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation International Excursion, and that's to the Amazon, to Brazil, next spring. And I hope you'll join me and my wife Jenny, Randy and Lori Hatzenbuhler, and we'll go to Rio de Janeiro and the Iguazu Falls. And we'll go a little bit up the Amazon River, not to the part where Theodore Roosevelt almost lost his life on the River of Doubt, now the Rio Roosevelt. But that's just a bit of the excitement ahead for today and in the future. We're in Medora, North Dakota. And the people of Fargo know that in 1910, Theodore Roosevelt, while visiting Fargo, said he would have never been president but for his experiences here. He'd earlier written of his time in the Badlands that this is where the romance of his life began. He said it was here that we lived the free and hearty life, where we knew the glory of work and the joy of living. And so do we. Some of the wonderful people that we get to work with are the folks who have been serving us today. And I'd like to ask everyone who's associated with the luncheon today, all of the folks who served us, anybody who's back in the kitchen, if I could get some assistance, if somebody would please call out the kitchen staff that we might say thank you to the wonderful people that have served us here today. Can we give them our thanks? Our thanks to everybody who served luncheon today. It was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful luncheon. We thank you greatly. Chris Stockman, come out and take a little. Yes, sir. I'm a dead president. Chris Stockman, the head of our food and beverage. Give a wave right there. On behalf of all of your staff, Chris Stockman, thank you very much. All the way from the great state of Iowa to assist us. And I'll just close with this. The original said, keep your eyes on the stars and your feet planted firmly on the ground. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. And for the Republic, do what you can with what you have where you are. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being a member of the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation through your Rough Rider membership, your business membership. Enjoy Medora, and thank you for living in the bully spirit. Thank you all so very much.